Good morning. My name is Mary Henderson, and I am the president of the CPOA, and I welcome all of you here this morning. Can you hear me all right? We're good? This morning, we have a unique opportunity. We not only have a special guest who is the assemblyman for our district, Assemblyman Molitor. We also have the Bird Tree and Garden Club, who is going to give us a very important presentation about a critical issue regarding trees on the grounds. So I hope you will all pay deep attention to when Leslie talks to us and also to our assemblyman. In addition to that, we will have the Architectural Awards and also a short presentation from our treasurer and from our chair of nominating. It has been a great summer. I hope that all of you who have had a chance to hear Kyle Keogh speak in his webinars or in his presentations at various forums. He's answered so many questions, and we all look forward to hearing in the meeting after this one more information about how Chautauqua is moving forward. Right, Kyle? So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Leslie Virgilian, who is a very hardworking president of the Bird Tree and Garden Club, and she will talk to you about the issue we have with our hemlock trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. As Mary said, I'm the president of the Bird Tree and Garden Club for another 2 weeks only. And then Jennifer Francois will be the president. I'm very excited about this. I mean, I assume she will be. It's an uncontested election, so pretty sure she's anyway, I am here to talk to you today about the hemlock woolly adelgid. But before I do, I want to make sure that you understand that the BTG is a separate 501c3 from the institution. So I am here representing the BTG and as a fellow homeowner, and I'm not representing Chautauqua. That said, we work really closely with Chautauqua, and Betsy and I talk about the hemlock woolly adelgid more than you would want to imagine. So I want to assure you that Chautauqua is fully aware of the threat of the hemlock woolly adelgid and is treating it. The hemlock woolly adelgid, I'm sure that this is like a Chautauqua audience. There's a few people in here who are super experts, and you probably should come up and take the microphone. But for those of you who don't know, the hemlock woolly adelgid is an aphid-like insect that kills hemlock trees and shrubs by sucking the sap and life out of them. It usually takes, once a tree has been infested, between 3 and 10 years for the tree to die. It is lethal. And it is, we are sadly fully infested here, fully infested. Every single tree that we looked at this winter had signs of infestation. So, and sadly, we have such an abundant infestation that in the life expectancy of our trees, we're really more on the 3-year timeline than the 10-year timeline. So, I am going to talk to you about what you can do with the trees on your private property. We'll get to, actually, I'll start with Chautauqua's. It came to Chautauqua on that ancient hemlock tree just to the left of Alumni Hall in 2021. That was probably patient zero for the entire county. It came to the United States in the 1950s. It took about 30 years for it to really get going, and many of you know it's sort of ravaged the Appalachian forest and the Southeast. It is devastating to go on a hike in western North Carolina and look out at just stands of dead trees. It took a long time to get here because it's not cold tolerant, but we had a couple of mild winters, and that was enough to give it a little bit of a foothold. It probably came here on some of our shoes, maybe even mine, as I spend a lot of time under that hemlock tree. But it is here. That was ground zero. And so this area right here is priority 1 for treatment. The trees, Chautauqua has decided to treat about 400 trees. This has to be done by a licensed applicator with, in case you're interested, a Class 2 EE certification. There are not a lot of them in this county. So Chautauqua's treating 400 trees, and they went through and determined the priority 1 trees. Those are the ones that are closest to ground zero. Well-situated, healthy trees. And then next spring, they will treat about 200 more. But I'm talking to you about private trees. Somebody on my board, I did a little practice of this, and she said, I know what's going to happen. I've seen you talk so many times. You prepare all your notes, everything is beautiful, and then you never even glance at it. So I'm really going to try to stay looking at my, my notes here. So, as I said, Chautauqua is on the institution, but it's not yet widespread in the county. The Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy did extensive surveys of the forest this year, and it is not widespread. This is our opportunity to be a good neighbor. We sometimes wonder whether our efforts to help our county and our lake have any effect. This time they really can. This is our time to step up. It will spread throughout the county in the next few years. And for the forest and for our lake and for our drinking water, there are truly terrible implications of the HWA, but I'm not going to go into that right now. I'm going to go back to our little 200 acres where there is hope. We can save our trees, and more importantly, we can do our part to help stop the infestation of the rest of the county. I know this sounds a little bit like the early days of COVID, but slowing the spread is a very good thing. Cornell and others are exploring really cool biocontrols and other options. And since we are now a level 2 arboretum, I hope you did not miss that announcement in the paper. Thank you, have applied to Cornell to be one of the places where they test out some exciting new treatment options. This is a little bit like getting into a cancer trial. Really cool. We'll let you know how that goes. But anyway, we have connected with the Cornell Hemlock Initiative team, with New York PRISM, with the New York State Bureau of Invasive Species and Ecosystem Health. This is serious, and we're taking it seriously. So that's a little bit about what Chautauqua is doing about our trees. Let's talk about yours. First question, is it infected? Almost certainly so. And if it is not this year, it will, 99% sure be infected by next year. I'm passing around a little bottles. There are about 6 of them going around, because the second question for homeowners is, do I have a hemlock? Or is this some other conifer? We've got spruces, cypress, all kinds of things. When you look out onto your yard and you're trying to decide, is it a hemlock? The best thing to do, honestly, is to use an app on your phone. I like Picture This. That's a great one. You just hold it up there and it will analyze it. If you have an eastern hemlock, that was step 1. All right. So step 2, does the tree belong to you or the institution? This is the property owners meeting, so you know that property lines are kind of complicated here. If it is beside your house or behind your house, it is yours. Many of you know that Chautauqua generally owns 10 feet in from the street. So if there is a tree that is on Chautauqua's property and it is a proper tree, by that I mean it has been allowed to grow tall, it's got exposed bark, it's got exposed branches, then you can assume that Chautauqua is either going to treat it or remove it. However, if what you're looking at is a hemlock shrub, this is not the natural form of a hemlock. This is a tree that's been pruned, topped off at the top, and is basically acting like a bush. There are a lot of hedgerows of hemlocks, especially in the north end. If those are on Chautauqua's property, they are your responsibility. Chautauqua does not plant hedgerows. Chautauqua does not prune trees into shrubs. So if you're looking at a hemlock tree that has got a shrub-like appearance on Chautauqua property, it's your responsibility to treat. Chautauqua will not be treating shrubs. So, the good news is, if it's a shrub, there is an easy and inexpensive way to treat it. This is called neem oil. It's an insecticidal oil. It's organic. It's also called a horticultural oil, a dormant oil. I bought this at Home Depot yesterday. This is a concentrate. It will make 10 gallons of spray. It costs $12.25. This will last me for years. You buy a pump spray or a battery spray, and you just spray the whole thing until the needles are dripping. You don't need to spray the trunk. You don't need to spray any exposed wood. You just need to spray the needles. It's a foliar application. Foliar means foliage, and in this case, that means needles. So you spray all the needles. You need to start doing that this spring, late March, early April. If you are not here then and you have a landscape contractor who can do it, they do not need to be certified in any way to do that. So that is easy and inexpensive. It's just somewhat time consuming. Now, if it is an actual, see, I'm still not looking at my notes. If it's a tree, the foliar application will not work, and it needs to be treated with an insecticide. The one most effective is called imidacloprid, and you cannot use this yourself. It has to be done by a certified applicator. You're going to go online and find ways to buy imidacloprid. I am asking you not to do that. As of this month, it is banned in New York State for homeowners to use it, but you will be able to find it. And it will be available in soil soak or soil tablets. Please do not do this. We do not know the long-term effects of the lake of the health, but we know they're not good. It will be taken up by every tree and shrub and will kill all the insects, the monarchs, the pollinators, everything that comes into contact. It's safe for use on hemlocks because they're wind pollinated and bees do not rely on them for food. So it is safe. Well, this is the best way to control it in hemlocks because it's taken up internally by the hemlock and the pollinators are not affected by it. So here's what we're doing. We have talked to the guy who is treating Chautauqua's trees about doing a group treatment for all of the trees on private property. He's agreed to do this. There are not a lot of certified applicators in our county, and none of the ones that I talked to were willing to come out and treat individual trees. But Eric Stawisky is willing to come out if we provide a full list of trees that need to be treated. He is willing to come out for a week next spring and treat all of the trees, just going down the list, not billing homeowners separately, not talking to every homeowner about their one tree, et cetera, like that. So we've got this survey, you can scan into it, and we ask that you go ahead and identify your tree, measure your tree, and let us know whether you would like to be part of this. This is step one. We may not be able to pull this off, but we are really hopeful that we can. So I'm asking everyone here to go home, take a look at your trees and shrubs, determine whether you have a hemlock. If you have a shrub, you can treat it yourself. If you have a tree, please fill out our survey and we will get back to you. Now, another option, and ultimately you may want to think about, is removing your hemlock. We ask that you not do that right now for a couple of reasons. One, the best way to deal with the removed hemlock is to burn it, but look around. We are not burning trees here. Old houses really close together, that is not a good idea. And if your landscaper wants to dispose of it, and take it off ground somewhere, it is likely that they will be infecting other parts of the county unless they take it down and spray it in the truck, which is not likely to happen. 2, we do not have room, Chautauqua does not have room at our off-site compost heap for a whole bunch of trees right now. So what we want to do right now is treat them all. Control this as best we can. As you're walking around grounds, you might see little metal tags on the 200 trees that have already been treated. I also have a list on our website and out here on this table of trees that have been treated. So if you're curious about whether a tree on your property has been treated, if it doesn't have a metal tag, it might be treated in 2026. We've got a list of that. I know you're going to have a lot of questions. I've got a couple of minutes right here. I'll be sitting at this table, and if you scan into our website, there is a ton of information, as well as a link to the trees that have been treated, the ones that will be treated, the ones that will be removed, a link to our survey, a link to a video of me showing you how to apply it on my tree. This is my first foray into TikTok, and I don't know how it's going to go. Anyway, I got 1 minute for questions. Any questions? Yes?
Once the tree is treated, how long is that good?
Oh, great question. So if you treat the foliar application of the shrubs, ideally that will need to be done in March or late March, early April of this year. That will need to be repeated every spring and fall for a really long time. Basically, we need to wait for the little woolly booger to kill all of the hemlocks and then just die off because it no longer has any food. So that, it's inexpensive, but yes, twice a year for a long time. Now, the trees that are treated with the insecticide by the arborist, that application is expected to last 3 to 5 years. So if you have a tree about this big, you measure a tree at breast height, 4.5 feet, and then you measure the diameter. So a tree about this big would cost about $50 to treat. It's about 5 inches across, and that should last 3 to 5 years. They'll just keep monitoring it to see when it needs to be done. When this first came out, they were hopeful that this would last 7 years, but it doesn't seem like that's working. Yes?
If we have a tree, a hemlock, which we know it is, that was planted by the institution, then we assume that they are responsible.
Is it a tree form? So she says if we have a tree that we know was planted by the institution on institution property, can we assume that the institution is treating it? Unless you or your landscaper has pruned it and it looks like a shrub? It's a full tree. Okay, yes. And we've got a list of all the trees that are being treated, that have been treated this year, will be treated next year, or will be removed. Some trees will be removed if they're not doing well, if they're not well situated, something like that, they'll be removed. Thanks, Debbie. Yes? The effect on the wildlife. So as I said, if it's taken up just by hemlocks, there's very little effect because hemlocks are wind pollinated, which means that insects aren't visiting it tree to tree and pollinating. And they also don't rely on hemlocks for food. However, if you use a soil soak and put it everywhere and it's taken up by other trees, for example, if it's taken up by like a red oak tree, which we know over 300 insects feed on, caterpillars, and then the caterpillars are eaten by the birds. That is disastrous. That's why it needs to be applied only to the hemlock. Thank you, that was a great question. Maybe one more question? No? Okay, I'm really hopeful here. This is a devastating insect. But we have a real opportunity here to get out in front, to treat our trees. I also want to say that it is on the bottoms of your shoes. Don't take it home and don't take it out into the county. If you're going on a hike somewhere out in the county, please clean the bottom of your shoes before you go. And also, if you can pass these back in or leave them on the table. This is from my tree. Oh, this is another good way to identify a hemlock. They have tiny cones. If you find big cones on your property, that's probably a Norway spruce or something else. You can see the woolly masses on these that I'm passing around. That's because my tree has been infected now. This is the second summer. On the first summer of infestation, it will not show this woolly mass. It will have showed it in the winter, but not in the summer. Okay, thank you.
Wow. I'm going to go home and inspect my trees.
Okay.
Chautauqua has a lot of really beautiful homes, and all of us care so much about them. The CPOA often presents an architectural award, and this year we have 5 awards to some really beautiful homes. Some are big, some are small, some are old, some are new. All are very, very special houses. Tim Holland has graciously agreed to present the awards to our architectural winners. So here's Tim.
So we have winners in each of the 5 categories of historic preservation. You can see pictures on the board there at the entry. And as we announce the winners, if you could stand up and proceed to where Bob Jeffrey is there, you'll get your banner, we'll take a photo. The first winner is under the category of adaptive reuse, and that house is on 6 Merrill Avenue, very close to here. If you go through the gate there, it's on the left-hand side. And this is owned by Bartley and Denise Griffith, and it's a beautiful renovation that took into account the Needs for Americans with Disabilities Act. Under rehabilitation, 15 Longfellow Avenue, owned by Jeffrey and Suzanne Waters. It was a combination of 2 houses that they made into an architectural masterpiece that's on the south end overlooking the tennis courts with a big expanse of beautiful grass going down to the water. It also, to my knowledge, is the only LEED Platinum certified property in the grounds, which is the highest level of environmental sustainability a building can get. Under restoration, 20 Whittier Avenue, owned by Bert and Kathy Clark. This is directly across Thunder Bridge on your left-hand side. A beautiful house that was owned by Henrietta Ord Jones, who co-founded the Bird Tree and Garden Club, and also donated the land for the Arboretum over there. I watched this house being worked on, and it's always amazed me how this delicate little structure is lifted off its foundation, suspended in the air until they can build everything underneath again, but it's a gorgeous renovation. Under stewardship, 22 Vincent, which is near Vincent and Wyeth, owned by Sharon Thawley. This is an original Chautauqua home, meticulously maintained, and it gives you the feeling you're back in original Chautauqua. The last category is infill construction, which is basically building on an available lot. 25 Vincent, owned by Kristen and Troy Hennekoff. This was kind of amazing that from the fall to this spring, considering the brutality of this winter, they managed to get this house built, and it's a faithful echoing of what Chautauqua houses look like. So thanks to all of them, and if we could give them a round of applause.
Please stand so we know who you are, because the houses are so lovely. Are you here, the people who got the awards? Well, we thank you for your beautiful house. We will move on to nominating our lead area rep, Holly Mack, and her nominating committee, which was headed by Alice Hood, who couldn't be with us today. Worked hard all winter finding good nominees to serve as area reps. And they also have worked on who should be our trustee nominee, which Holly will tell you all about. And I urge you to vote in the election which is following this meeting, and that is conducted by the Chautauqua Institution Corporation. So Holly?
Thank you. And since I'm vertically challenged, I get this little box to
step up on. Hello, friends. So my name is Holly Mack, and I'm a member of the CPOA Nominating Committee, and I'm filling in for Alice Hood. She's our chair. We are comprised of Alice Hood, Betsy Vance, an area rep, Barbara Brady, a former board member, Laura Dawson, a member from the community, and me in my capacity as lead area rep. So as you know, the corporation election for Class B trustee is today. And the CPOA board nominates with enthusiasm Rick Evans for a second term as the Class B trustee to the institution's Board of Trustees. The voting, as Mary said, will take place following our CPOA meeting. Throughout his 4-year tenure, Rick has been a strong voice on the Board of Trustees, encouraging Chautauqua to be true to the 4 pillars. He's been a Chautauquan for 69 summers, is a husband, father, grandfather, and attorney in San Antonio, Texas. He and his wife, Rainey, live near the amphitheater during the 9-week season, and he works tirelessly as a trustee. The CPOA was proud to nominate him in 2021 for his first term, and we are very pleased to nominate him to serve another 4-year term. He currently serves on the 3-person committee to review Chautauqua's finances, something pretty critical, and is also a member of the Presidential Search Committee, also critical. Please join with the CPOA in supporting Rick Evans for Class B trustee. And Rick, would you please stand up wherever you are? Thank you, Rick. Thank you. We also want, excuse me for the frog in my throat, it just won't go away. But we also want to thank our outgoing area reps who've given many, many hours of support to the CPOA, and they are Darlene Johnston, who is busy at the table over there, Portia Rose, and I'm not sure where you are, Portia, but Portia Rose. She's probably checking people in because it's Saturday. Elaine Davis, and our outgoing member advocate, Linda Turi. Please stand, Linda. Well, you're right there. Thank you. And we welcome the following new members to the CPOA board, and they are Arlene Hajlenian. I think I didn't say your name correctly. Denise Minnick, and Linda Creech, who may not be here, but she worked very hard on the picnic for her area. Member at large, Pat Mead, whom I know is here somewhere. Yay. For secretary role, Margie Bucksbaum. And for communications, MJ Johnston, who right now is working on our new website and will move into the communications role in the fall. The member advocate position will be taken by Linda Kahn, who has done communications for the past year, so it's her new position. She's not new to the board. So all the other board members are remaining in their positions for the coming year, and I want to thank you. Alice wants to send thanks to all the board members. Thank you.
Our treasurer, Russ Boehner, will tell you all the gory details about our finances. He's been terrific. He dots all the I's, crosses all the T's, keeps us on the straight and narrow. So he will tell you everything you need to know about finance.
Thank you very much. And I'll sit in the box too, since I'm a midget. The good news is that I'm the treasurer for the 2024 and 2025 fiscal years. So we're talking initially about 2024, the year that ended, because our fiscal year is the calendar year. So I want to thank our 600 dues-paying members who make it possible for us to be in a healthy financial position. The CPOA is a civic league under Section 501c4 of the Federal Tax Code, which means its revenue is tax exempt. Your dues and other contributions, however, are not tax deductible. And as I said, our fiscal year runs from January 1 through December 1. We had total income in that period, the year ended December 31, 24, mostly from dues of $29,000 and total expenditures of $23,500, which means we had a surplus or operating revenue of $5,381. Since we budgeted for a deficit of $7,000, this was unexpected. And this was due largely to the significantly higher memberships. We had 750 in our budget, and we got 817, and lower than expected expenses on special projects. We had budgeted $33,000 and only spent $23,000. This will likely not be duplicated in the current year, 2020-25, but more on that in a minute. As it has been reported in the last few years, the CPOA has been carrying a significant cash balance due to low expense years of the 2020 pandemic and following. As such, and in addition to our regular expenditures, we have been making a concerted effort to reduce our cash surplus and use the money to enhance the property owners of Chautauqua experience. In 2023, we donated $2,500 to pickleball, as well as partnering with the institution by contributing $5,000 towards the $10,000 cost of the impact study. Looking ahead, we have pledged $5,000 towards the cost of restoring and operating Hines Beach, and have already funded the purchase of several chairs, which are now, as we speak, in use on the beach. And we've budgeted $15,000 towards replacing and upgrading our community engagement platform, presently hosted by a French company known as HiveBright, with the goal of creating a more user-friendly and CPOA design website. After taking these impacts on operations, we ended the 2024 year with $54,172 in total assets, which represents the sum of checking and a 6-month CD and so forth. Our bylaws call for us to maintain a balance equal to at least twice our annual fixed cost of $12,000 or $24,000. So since we have $54,000, we're well within that $24,000 requirement. It's too early to report on financial performance for the current year. However, 2 items bear mentioning. First, due to an error caused by our current software provider, active members who had elected to have their membership automatically renewed were no longer eligible for that option, no longer eligible for the automatic renewal option. This error caused us to lose approximately 130 members and caused a revenue shortfall of $4,000. Second, as mentioned above, your CPOA board has determined to undertake a study to evaluate other community engagement software with the goal of adopting a more user-friendly platform. We have budgeted $15,000 for this study and increased the budget for software fees and operating costs by $5,000 because we need to have an orderly transition from the current system to the new system, whatever it is. So although the software changes are in the budget, the loss of dues were not. Therefore, this is a friendly reminder that if you haven't paid your dues, we'd still accept them. All that said, we are still in a healthy financial condition. As of July 31, we still have total assets of $57,000. And finally, a couple notes on where we normally spend our money each year. So we spent it on the computer software, which is expensive. That's about $10,000 a year. We do the week 0 dinners. And if you're a member, if you join early, if you're a member, we remind you by May 1st that it's coming. We have networking with the community groups and denomination houses. We do the area picnics, and these are a great way to improve our feeling of community on the grounds. And if this year's picnics were on July 23rd, just passed, and we were enjoyed by roughly 600 members. As I say, special projects, our focus for this year is upgrading our website and community engagement. And then we do a grounds crew luncheon, And this is the time when we have a chance to thank our hardworking grounds crew for all their work in making the grounds beautiful and for their help in setting up tables and chairs and otherwise. This year's luncheon will be held on Wednesday, August 13th. And although it does not represent a cost to the CPOA in dollars or free gate passes, recall that all this work is done by volunteers who don't get a gate pass, who don't give any pay and any benefit at all. We are always interacting with the institution for the good of our members and to enhance the overall property experience. Thank you for your attention.
I need this, but hello. I'm Linda Turry, the member advocate, and I'm here to introduce our speaker. Andrew Molitor is currently the assembly member for the 150th Assembly District, which includes all of Chautauqua County and part of Cattaraugus Indian Reservation in Erie County. He is formerly the Chautauqua County First Assistant District Attorney and was also a Chautauqua County Assistant Public Defender for 3 years. He received a BA from Canisius College in 2007 and his JD from the University of Buffalo in 2011. He was admitted to the New York State Bar in 2012. He lives in Westfield with his wife Celia and their 5 children. Mr. Molitor.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I think the best part about being here this morning is that Saturday mornings are normally chore time, and I've gotten to avoid that. So don't worry, the chores will be there for me when I get home, trust me. It is a real honor to be with you at the Chautauqua Institution. I'm not from Chautauqua County originally. I grew up in Erie County. And I see claps back there for Erie County, yes. And my sort of, introduction to the importance of Chautauqua Institution first came when we moved to Chautauqua County. My kids were real young then, and we bought a jigsaw puzzle. We like to do jigsaw puzzles in the wintertime to pass the time. And this jigsaw puzzle was a map of the United States. And in each state, there was 1 or 2, maybe 3 important places, depending on the size of the state, of course. And in New York, it was New York City, Niagara Falls, and Chautauqua Institution. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I better find out more about the Chautauqua Institution. And over time I've toured the grounds, and both in the summertime and the winter. And this year my oldest son was here with the chorus for county band. So we enjoy Chautauqua Institution. We understand the importance of the institution, not just to our county, but really the country and the world. And thank you very much for making this place what it is. So I was thinking about what I could talk to you about, and I thought maybe you'd find it interesting if I peeled back the curtain a little bit. I haven't been in politics for long. This is the first position I've ever run for. Before this, of course, I was an attorney. And it's been eye-opening for me, the way state government works, and I thought maybe I could share a little bit of that from my perspective with all of you, and then maybe get into a couple of issues that affect New York State, I think affect New York State, and then take questions from all of you. So since we're in the Hall of Philosophy, I'd like to start with a little bit of political philosophy. Of course, the definition of an assembly is a group of people gathered together for a common purpose. And the legislative branch embodies the principles of popular sovereignty, where the ultimate power rests with the people. In a representative democracy, citizens elect representatives to make decisions on their behalf. The legislature serves as the forum where these representatives debate and deliberate on matters concerning the common good and the interests of their constituents. Philosophers like John Locke argue that individuals voluntarily enter into a social contract, surrendering some natural rights to a government in exchange for protection and stability. The legislative branch is seen as a key mechanism for creating and enforcing laws that form this social contract, reflecting the collective agreement of the people. The establishment of a separate legislative branch, along with the executive and judicial branches, is a manifestation of the principle of separation of powers. This separation aims to prevent the concentration of power in any single entity and safeguard against tyranny. The legislative branch, through its power to create laws and oversee the executive, plays a crucial role in the system of checks and balances. In essence, the legislative branch acts as the voice of the people, translating their collective will into the framework of laws that govern society, uphold the social contract, and maintain the balance of power to safeguard individual liberty and the common good. The legislature is not an extension of the executive branch. When I got to Albany, which is where the capital is in New York State, which is, by the way, the farthest capital, one of the farthest capitals away from where I live. I actually live closer to about 8 other state capitals. When I got, to Albany, I was a little naive. And I thought that based upon this understanding of political philosophy and the way our Constitution works, our New York State Constitution, that what would happen is that a bill would get introduced, the public would know about the bill would go through committee, there'd be a robust intellectual debate about the bill would begin and get voted on, and if it passed, it would make it to the floor of the Assembly, where further robust debate would occur, taking in maybe some additional information that was learned between the committee date and the Assembly floor vote debate. And then if it passed the floor of the Assembly, of course, it would go to the Senate, and then the governor's office would have an opportunity to either veto or sign the bill into law. And I was naive about that, because what I learned is that, when we first started with the bills, at the beginning of the legislative session, we weren't even there every day. We would be there like one day a week, or we would be there twice a week. And it wasn't until the end of our session in May and June that we started to get there every day of the week. I mean, it took us about a month and a half beyond our schedule to pass a budget, which was our primary responsibility. The first set of bills that we started to review were chapter amendments. And I thought, what's a chapter amendment, right? That was my first question. I learned that a chapter amendment was a bill that amended a bill that was previously passed in the last legislative session, but had not yet, was signed into law, but with the promise that the bill would get changed. So what was happening is that a bill got passed, the governor didn't like it, she would call up the Speaker of the Assembly and the President of the Senate and say, I'm not going to sign this bill into law unless you change it. And so we would take up a number of these chapter amendments. And I said to somebody, well, if the governor doesn't sign the bill, and we all liked the bill, why don't we just override the veto? Oh, Andrew, that's not the way things are done here at Albany. So again, naive. And some of these chapter amendments that we would be dealing with were things that could have been fixed in the last legislative session. But what happens is that because so much time is spent delaying, that all these bills end up getting pushed to the end of the legislative session. They're rushing and passing them basically in the middle of the night. So in the last couple weeks of the legislative session, we would start our day at 10 o'clock in the morning, because you can't start at 8:30 in government. And then we would go till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, passing bill after bill after bill after bill. And some of those bills there was some debate on, and on those bills that there was some debate on, I'm sure they will end up next year as there'll be chapter amendments for those bills. Because the other thing I learned is, because we weren't flushing these bills out in their entirety, and we weren't letting the community know what was going on necessarily, and we weren't letting everybody argue the bills the way they needed to argue them, that a lot of these bills, while good intentioned, have unintended consequences, that affect one group or another, or affect another part of the government or another, or affect our private sector. And so, that was frustrating. And the last thing I'll say about the process in particular is that I always thought that there would be lots of notice, right? This is a bill. It's going to change, it's going to change the law or add a new law. We're going to put it out there. We're going to let everybody know that this is happening. It's coming. And that's not the case. That's not the way it works. Many, many times, we were notified that a bill was going to come to a committee hours before it was going to go to committee. And it wasn't the only bill in committee. There were lots of bills. And the way maybe this is because I'm a lawyer, but I didn't want to vote on any bill that I didn't read first. So I would read the bill language. I would read every bill, and every bill comes with a bill memo. I'd read every bill memo, and then I would try to find as much research out there about the bill. Maybe it was one that was passed in previous years, and there was some lobbyists were lobbying on that bill. I tried to find as much information as I could. And then, sometimes bills would make it to the floor of the assembly without even going through committee, because of course there's a procedural exception to everything that happens in the legislature. And I bring all of this to your attention because I really think that's bad government. Like I said before, the legislature is not an extension of the executive branch. And the reason I say that is because the legislature, I, as an assemblyman and the senator, we represent the people in our district. And one of the most important things we can do is get to know our fellow assembly members and senators from other parts of the state and understand who they are as people and what their constituents want. And once we get to know them and they share their experience with us, we then can share our experience with them and what's happening in our district. And maybe we'll find that we have common interests and common goals. And maybe we can come up with solutions, common solutions to some of those problems. Again, I know I'm naive. One of the things that really disturbed me, and I say disturbed for good reason, is that in the New York State Legislature, you can vote on a bill without even being there. You get an ID card, you scan your ID card, and you can leave. If you're going to vote yes on a bill, you could just leave after you scanned in. And many people did that. There were times when I was on the floor of the assembly and I stood up to say something, and I was talking to, half the chamber was empty. I was talking to empty seats. And, you know, how can we pass good laws if our legislators aren't there advocating for us, listening, which is an important part of understanding people, listening to them, and then sharing their experiences and what their constituents need? And I wonder sometimes, and you know, I'm a little bit of a student of history, I love to read, and I wonder sometimes if we've given up on the legislature. You know, we don't think it moves fast enough, it doesn't do things the way we want it to work, and so we've put all of our eggs in one basket, maybe the executive branch, and we think that's the only way things can get done. Or we put all of our eggs in the judiciary, and we think that's the way things can get done. That's not the way our system was set up. You know, there's a reason why the seats in the assembly sit in a semicircle. It's because we actually have to look at each other. We actually have to be accountable to the other people that are there in the assembly. And if we're not there, then we don't have to be accountable. And we don't have to listen. And then we really don't have any right to complain that bad laws are passed, do we? You know, maybe today, August 9th, 2025, is the beginning of the legislative revival. Maybe not. So that's some of my perspective on the legislature. I will also share with you that I'm assigned to a few committees. I'm on the Judiciary Committee, which, you know, if any bill that seeks to amend the civil procedure law in New York or amend the New York State Constitution goes through the Judiciary Committee. I'm on the Codes Committee. Codes has to deal with, you know, any law that has any sort of punishment, whether it's a fine or imprisonment, whatever it may be. Social Services deals with safety net programs in New York State. Children and Families, I don't know why they put me on that one. No, I'm just kidding. You know, that sort of blends a lot with social services. And then finally, banks. And I learned this. I thought that banks had to deal with all the banks in New York State, but New York can only regulate New York chartered banks, not federal banks. So these laws that go through the Banks Committee only deal with New York chartered banks. You know, when I was asked to speak, I was asked to sort of give my expectation and vision. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have a ton of expectation because of the way the process is working right now. But I would like to share my vision with you on some issues I think that are important. And I would also like to share an example of how I think maybe things can get done. So first, I just want to mention Chautauqua Lake, which is obviously a very important issue. You know, what happens if a harmful algal bloom gets into the Chautauqua Institution water supply? It shuts it down. And so algal blooms, as we all know, are caused by numerous factors, including nutrient loading in the northern and southern basin in Chautauqua Lake. And there's a lot of lake groups that are involved. We know the Jefferson Project, which was brought to Chautauqua Lake by the institution, is doing good work. The Army Corps of Engineers is now involved. And we're also aware of an updated study by the DEC that is trying to determine what are the levels of that nutrient loading. Hopefully all of these studies will culminate in solutions. That's really what we need. And from a state perspective, you know, I want to be advocating for state funds for Chautauqua Lake. Every year there are funds that are in the budget that are specifically set aside for Chautauqua Lake, and I want to make sure that doesn't go away and try to increase that. You know, as many of you know, we have the DEC wetland regulations, and what I would just ask any of you to do if there's ever an issue, and I don't know how your process works in Chautauqua Lake, but or the Chautauqua Institution, but if there's ever an issue with the DEC, getting a permit or going through the permitting process, my office is available to you to help you. I am co-sponsoring legislation that exempts certain inland lakes like Chautauqua Lake from the wetland regulations. Lakes are separately regulated under New York state law. So, that's something to keep it a close eye on. I also like to talk to you a little bit about public safety and crime prevention. So, that dog does not like what I'm saying. So in 2019, New York eliminated judicial discretion in setting bail. And they created an arbitrary list of crimes that no longer qualify for bail and others that did. And those that did qualify, judges had to analyze certain factors as listed by the legislature. The problem is that, this bill was passed in the back of a budget bill. And none of those factors that were listed included an assessment as to whether the defendant is a risk to the physical safety of another person or a threat to the community. Neither do they include a determination about a defendant's mental health, including substance abuse, and there also is not a mechanism that allows them to transfer somebody to a secure facility for treatment. So, what I've seen over the course of my career as both a prosecutor and a defense attorney is that we have drug dealers in Chautauqua County selling enough fentanyl that could kill hundreds of people at one time, who are arrested and then released. Or a domestic abuser who has psychological, emotional, and physical control over a victim who commits a crime and is released. Or an arsonist who burns down a house, or a burglar who steals from someone's house, released. I've also seen a thief that steals the expensive coaxial cable that runs along cell towers. They come into the county, they'll climb the tower, steal the coaxial cable, and then flee to Ohio. And once we catch them, we have to release them and then go back to Ohio. And there are some statistics that I think are troubling. The crime index, which is kept by the Division of Criminal Justice Services, is showing that New York City is at a 20-year high in crime, and the state has been steadily increasing since 2019. The rest of the state has been increasing and is catching up with New York City. But, stats can only give you one side of the picture. Because people are no longer alive that should be. Property has been destroyed that wouldn't have been. Cases fall apart because witnesses are fearful of retaliation. And some people are serving long prison sentences that should have gotten help before they did something worse. I'll tell you about a case in this county where a guy was driving a semi-truck and he was impaired, and he killed a young girl walking across the street in Jamestown. He was released, and some months later, he was driving again impaired, and he killed a woman who was coming home from her grandchildren's house. I'll tell you another case about a guy who burned a house down when there was nobody inside, no person inside. He did it out of revenge because he had been evicted. And the fire burned so fast and so hot it killed the dog upstairs. And the fire spread to the house next door, where it killed all the pets in that house as well. And that case was particularly difficult to move forward because he was out the entire time. And he was putting pressure on some of the witnesses who identified him, trying to get them not to appear in court. I have a bill that restores judicial discretion to issue bail with more factors, with the goal to also release people when they're charged with petty offenses. It's all about balance. Did I wrap it up? Okay. I could go for another hour. I just want to say the last thing is that because of some respectful conversations that I've had with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I was able to draft legislation for an important bill that then did get passed by both houses unanimously. It had to deal with the criminal procedure law, and it's really a fantastic bill. It provides protection, immunity for those victims, I think, that are in the sex trafficking industry, so that when they report something serious to police and prosecution, they won't be charged with a crime. So good things can happen. I think we just need to be very respectful with each other. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Andrew, for your remarks. And we're going to turn it over to the institution. Thank you.